In this episode, we're going to talk about a special kind of access that can either keep an organization running smoothly or quietly become the fastest path to a full compromise: remote administration. Administrators need to manage servers, network devices, and services, often from different locations and at different times, and that means the network has to allow some form of remote control. The risk is that administrative access is powerful by design. So if an attacker can mimic an administrator or reach an administrative interface, they can often do more damage in minutes than they could through a normal user account in days. Jump hosts, bastions, and management networks are design patterns that exist to make remote administration both practical and defensible. The goal is to reduce the number of places administration can happen from, reduce the number of paths into critical systems, and increase the amount of monitoring and control around those paths. If you understand these patterns, you'll be able to recognize why certain environments contain administrative risk, while others feel like a house full of master keys. A good place to start is to separate the idea of using a system from administering a system. Normal user activity might involve reading email, accessing a business application, or browsing internal resources, and those actions typically have limited impact if abused. Administrative activity includes changing configurations, creating accounts, modifying access controls, and restarting services, and those actions can reshape the environment. Because the risk is higher, the access path should be narrower and stronger. Beginners sometimes assume that if an administrator can log in from their workstation, that's good enough, but it creates a fragile situation. If the workstation is compromised, the attacker may inherit administrative reach. The core principle is that administrative traffic should be treated like a critical resource, not like normal browsing. That means separating where it comes from, where it can go, and how it is observed. A jump host is a system that acts like a controlled stepping stone into more sensitive areas of a network. Instead of administrators connecting directly from their everyday workstation to many internal servers, they first connect to the jump host, and then from the jump host they connect onward to the target systems. This may sound like extra hassle, but it changes security in a powerful way. It reduces the number of systems that need to accept administrative connections from everywhere, because only the jump host needs to be reachable for administration, and the targets only need to trust the jump host. It also creates a single place where administrative sessions can be monitored and logged more thoroughly. If an attacker tries to reach an administrative system directly from a compromised workstation, the connection can be blocked at the boundary because direct paths are not allowed. In other words, the jump host concentrates administrative access into a narrow corridor. The term bastion is often used for a hardened entry point that is designed to withstand attack and to be heavily monitored. A bastion host is typically placed at a boundary where administrative access is needed, such as near a perimeter or between zones, and it is treated as a high-value system that must be more locked down than ordinary servers. The bastion approach assumes attackers will try to target it because it is a gateway to other systems, so defenders harden it aggressively and limit what runs on it. The most important idea is not the word bastion itself, but the purpose: build one strong, well-guarded door rather than many weak doors. If every server accepts administrative connections directly, you have dozens or hundreds of doors to protect. If you build a bastion or jump host approach, you can reduce that number dramatically and apply stronger controls at the single doorway you keep open. A management network is the larger architectural pattern that supports these ideas by separating administrative traffic from normal user traffic. Instead of having administration happen across the same network paths used by everyday activity, a management network creates a distinct zone where management interfaces live and where management clients connect. The reason this matters is that administrative interfaces are often sensitive and sometimes fragile, and they should not be exposed to the same risks as user devices. When management traffic is separated, you can apply stricter access controls, tighter monitoring, and different routing rules that limit who can even reach those interfaces. It also reduces accidental exposure, where a user device might stumble onto a management portal it should never see. This separation supports the principle of least privilege at the network level, because only specific, approved systems can initiate administrative sessions. For beginners, the simplest mental model is that management is its own lane on the highway, with checkpoints and cameras, not mixed into general traffic. These patterns also help with a very practical problem, ensuring that administrative actions are attributable and observable. When administration happens from random workstations with inconsistent logging, it becomes hard to answer basic questions during an incident, like who changed a firewall rule or who created a privileged account. If you centralize administrative access through jump hosts and management networks, you can collect stronger logs about session start times, target systems, authentication events, and command histories where appropriate. That improves detection because unusual administrative behavior stands out, and it improves response because investigations have better evidence. It also supports accountability, which is important because security is not only about stopping attackers, it is also about controlling authorized activity so mistakes and insider risks are less damaging. In mature environments, administrative access is treated as something that should be measurable and auditable, not just possible. A monitoring-ready design makes that measurement feasible. Another reason these patterns matter is that attackers often try to blend in as administrators rather than break systems noisily. If they steal credentials, they may simply log in using the same pathways administrators use. And if those pathways are broad and poorly monitored, the attacker can look like normal activity. By narrowing administrative pathways, you reduce the attacker's options and increase the defender's ability to detect anomalies. For example, if administrators are expected to access servers only through a jump host, then any administrative connection that appears to come from elsewhere is immediately suspicious. If administrative connections must originate from a management network, then seeing them originate from a user zone is a red flag. This is a powerful benefit of design. You make the rules so clear that violations become obvious. In a flat, permissive design, almost anything could be normal, which is exactly what attackers prefer. It's also important to understand how these patterns reduce the chance of credential exposure. When administrators log into many systems directly from their daily workstation, credentials and session tokens are used in many places, increasing the chance they can be captured by malware or by misconfigurations. When administrators log into a jump host and then manage systems from there, you can reduce where and how credentials are presented, especially if additional controls are applied at that gateway. Even without getting into specific technologies, you can see the general idea. Fewer login surfaces and fewer authentication events spread across risky devices reduces the chance of compromise. The jump host can also be configured with tighter restrictions and fewer applications, reducing its exposure to phishing and drive-by browsing risks. This does not eliminate all risk, but it turns a scattered set of weak points into a single, strongly defended point. From a beginner standpoint, it's the difference between defending every window in a building or defending one locked lobby. These designs also help control what an administrator can reach once connected, which matters because not every administrator should have access to every system. Role separation can be supported by having different jump hosts or different segments within the management network for different administrative functions. For example, network device administration might be separated from server administration, and highly sensitive identity systems might be reachable only from a more restricted subset. This reduces the blast radius of credential compromise, because if one administrator account is stolen, it may not grant access to everything. It also reduces mistakes, because fewer people can change the most sensitive settings. The beginner lesson is that you can apply least privilege not only to permissions inside systems, but also to the network pathways that make administration possible. The network can enforce who can even attempt to connect, which is a strong layer of protection. A common mistake is to deploy a jump host, but then undermine it with broad exceptions. If administrators can still reach servers directly from their workstations, the jump host becomes optional, and attackers will take the easiest path. Similarly, if management interfaces are reachable from user networks, the management network stops being a true boundary. Controls only work when they are enforced consistently, and consistency is a design choice. That means it's not enough to create a separate management zone. You must also ensure that management traffic is only allowed through the intended entry points. It also means treating temporary troubleshooting access as a risky exception that must be time-limited and reviewed. Many real incidents begin with a temporary exception that became permanent without anyone noticing. A safe design is one that anticipates operational pressure and builds processes that keep exceptions from becoming new normal. These concepts also connect to the idea of resilience during incidents. When you suspect compromise, one of the first things defenders often want to do is restrict access, especially administrative access, to prevent further changes. If administration is scattered across many devices and many paths, locking it down can be disruptive and slow. If administrative access is centralized through a few gateways, defenders can act quickly by tightening controls at those gateways, preserving the ability to manage systems while reducing attacker access. This is another reason to treat jump hosts and management networks as part of incident response readiness, not just daily operations. A network that supports safe administration is a network that can be defended under stress. Beginners sometimes focus only on normal operations, but security planning must include crisis operations too. As we wrap up, the main idea is that remote administration is unavoidable, but it doesn't have to be a wide-open risk. Jump hosts provide a controlled stepping stone that limits direct administrative reach and concentrates monitoring. Bastion hosts represent the hardened gateway concept, where a single strongly defended entry point replaces many weak, exposed entry points. Management networks separate administrative traffic from everyday user traffic, creating a distinct trust boundary with stricter rules and clearer visibility. When these patterns are enforced consistently, they reduce the number of paths attackers can use, reduce the chance that compromised user devices become administrative launchpads, and make unusual administrative behavior easier to detect. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Administrative access should be a narrow, well-guarded corridor, not an open field. That design choice is one of the most effective ways to control risk in real networks.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.